Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat petang. Welcome to another session of sharing, and pada hari ini saya akan membantu menjadi moderator kepada Prof Yeo, our speaker. Right, untuk tidak melengahkan masa lagi, saya mempersilakan Prof Yeo. Prof Yeo ada ya? Prof Yeo? Prof Yeo boleh bagi respon? Okay.
Okey, Dr. Husna boleh dengar tak?
Okay, boleh Prof, boleh.
Okey, terima kasih.
But we cannot see you. Can you turn on your video? Okay, now we can see you.
Okay, fine. I'm at home.
Okay, Prof.
I cannot trust the efficiency of internet in the office.
Okay.
And I cannot trust it. So I choose to stay at home. And anyway, just finish my slide. Okay, Dr. Husna.
Okay.
So I can begin now.
Okay, so kita mempersilakan Prof untuk perkongsian yang sangat penting berkenaan dengan fundamental of teaching. For those who yang memang background in teaching, I think this session will be a nice refreshment for us. And those who tak ada background education, this is a very, very important session for you guys. And you can ask as much as question kepada Prof tentang teaching. So Prof, silakan Prof. Saya akan coordinate jika ada soalan dalam chat ataupun soalan daripada staff lah. Okay? Alright Prof, silakan.
Dr. Husna, you akan share yang slide tu kan?
So, okay. Prof nak saya share. Saya share. Alright, I share now.
So I can just sit down and relax.
Okay, sure. Okay, boleh nampak slide?
Okay, so Dr. Husna, you tolong buatkan view.
View okay. Sekejap saya pun tak pasti because saya dia punya macam mana nak share ni. 1 minute.
Okay, sudah nampak view je.
View. Macam nak view?
View yang kat bawah tu dia macam PowerPoint.
Sure. Okay. Alright. Okay.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Husna, and good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to my talk, and I see the figure 60. So, sedaplah 60 tu dia macam ada maksud kepada orang otai ni. Now, I'll be talking about teaching and learning, and all of us are teachers. You can see that in e-learning, we are called teachers. They do not put down their educator or lecturers. So, teachers, welcome teachers, yeah. So now we are talking about teaching and learning. Dr. Husna, how about the slides? You can go on to the next slide, Dr. Husna.
Okay, Prof nampak?
Yes. How about the second slide?
Now my view is the second slide.
Oh, mine is the first slide.
Okay, let me. Macam mana
Ataupun Dr. Husna, you nak saya share ke?
Lagi bagus kalau Prof share terus.
I think better I do it kejap
Okay.
So, saya akan share kejap saya tengok di mana benda tu. Kejap. Oh, tapi kalau saya share, saya tak ada yang Slido tu macam mana?
It's okay, nanti yang tu saya try share kan. Nanti
boleh. Kalau saya share tak apa ke?
Nanti saya akan nanti bila time saya nak present the Slido, saya akan share pula. Prof share slide.
Okay, boleh. So, okay, boleh nampak ke?
Boleh Prof.
Sekejap Okay, now. So kita sambung ceritanya. Now we'll be talking about teaching and learning, and so before I begin, I would like you guys to go to the Slido, Dr. Husna. There are 2 questions for you all in the Slido. What is teaching and what is learning? Now can you get the Slido, Dr. Husna? If not, then we can just see in the chat. In a very brief what your definition of what is teaching and what is learning before I begin with other slides. Yeah. Dr. Husna, is it working?
Sekejap.
Okay,
Okay.
never mind. You can just type if it is that difficult. It's okay, Dr. Husna. Can you guys
Okay.
please type, briefly, what do you understand by teaching and learning? Please. At least a few people give me your answer, so easy for me to go on. Now, many of you have been teaching for so long, and I don't think this is a difficult question. I believe even if you close your eyes, you can answer. Just scribble a few words. Nanti Dr. Husna tolong beritahu
Okay, Prof. Yang tu link Slido untuk jawab soalan. Saya dah copy.
Dah, okay. So, Dr. Husna, kalau you can upload, you punya lagi senang tau.
Oh, okay. Tapi saya tak tahu kenapa view tadi tak boleh bergerak saya punya slide. Saya cuba sekali lagi.
Okay. So, saya stop sharing ke?
Ya. Yeah.
Macam mana I nak stop sharing ni? Kejap. Okay, good. What is teacher making a unknown person to be sharing the knowledge include the good things and acts of imparting knowledge with the hope that learners are able to grasp the knowledge and later on they are able to apply, making an unknown person to be in a state of known. So fantastic. A process to impart knowledge and skills, sharing knowledge, sharing with others. I can see sharing of knowledge, info, and skill from unknown to known, which means you are sharpening their cognition. How about learning, Dr. Husna? Another question on learning.
Okay, kita masih menunggu jawapan lagi. Saya dah buka poll untuk kedua, what is learning? Boleh jawab. Okay, dah ada jawapan. Process of unknown to known.
Receiving, exploring, relatively permanent change in a person's knowledge. This is really, really tepat sekali. Exact. Relative knowledge of behavior due to experience. The third one is a perfect. Yeah. Okay. Journey to develop oneself. Receiving, exploring. Process of acquiring. Knowledge acquisition. Okay, I think that's good enough. Now that you turn on the view. Now I can see here, is just really good. Yeah, to the point. What is teaching? You are talking about sharing, knowledge, information, knowledge, information, skill, and one from unknown. You know, from unknown to known. This is teaching from one side, from the teacher's side, and perhaps the students they teach their peers also. Now, learning is acquiring, acquiring knowledge, exploring ideas, and you are talking about relatively permanent change. So if there is no change in years to come, now when you teach, you may not see the immediate change, but maybe relatively, in future, you can see the change behavior. Yeah, you learn how to tie a shoelace. After 10 years, you close your eyes, you can still tie the shoelace because you have learned. Yeah, this is what we talk about the learning, and we see that learning and teaching, they are at the opposite ends in the teaching process. One side is imparting, the other one is the receiving part. The teacher is the one with authority, and the student is the one who is receiving. Yeah. Okay, now we go to the next slide. What is actually learning? Now, I have quoted a few from these books. I actually have all these books. Now, a persisting change in human performance or performance potential. What about as a result of the interaction with the environment? Now, number 2 by relatively, I forgot to color, relatively permanent change a person's knowledge of behavior due to experience, enduring change in behavior, or in the capacity to behave in a given fashion, which results from practice or other forms of experience, relatively permanent influence on behavior, knowledge, thinking skills, and so on by Central. So these are among the few about learnings. Now, to summarize it, it is about the change in behavior, a change that you can see now or the potential. And this is a result of experience. And this is about what learning is. Now, how to have this change? It comes from the teaching methods. It comes from the environment that support the teaching methods. So next slide, Dr. Husna. Now, that brings us to this talk today. I have 4 topics here. Number 1, I'm talking about the teaching methods. Methods in relation to theories and models, methods in relation to effective instruction. And number 3 is conceptualization, what is actually teaching and learning approach, strategy, method, and technique. And we see the spectrum of teaching and learning methods, whether it is passive or active, whether it's teacher-centered or student-centered. So there are 4 topics, yeah? Okay, next slide, please, Dr. Husna. Now, teaching methods, they are supported by the learning theories. So we need to know, to go to the root, where do these methods come from? It comes from the theory. From the theory, you have the model. From the model, you have either approach or strategy or method or technique. So the important one is to know the learning theories. Now, all my notes are actually based on literature. Yeah. Now, the first one is a cognitivism or information, and the other one we can also call it information processing, theory. Now, this is about the mental process. When you say cognitive, it is a mental process, everything that happens in the mind. It is about how you process information through attention, memory, thinking, and so on. Those cognitive processes use the memory system. You hear from outside, you hear, you see, you read, then you process, you store, you retrieve when you need it. So then this knowledge is stored in the brain. Now, knowledge is stored in the brain as symbols. So the learning is a process of connecting these symbols in a meaningful way. What is a model? The model is called information processing family. Yeah, information processing family model of teaching. I took from the book by Joyce, Well, and Cohen. They are the ones who have been actively teaching, writing the teaching models for more than 2 decades. I have at least 3 or 4 books for these people, and the latest is this. Yeah. Now, information processing model focus about information, focusing on information, how to acquire, how to organize, how to use it, how to learn the concept, how to generalize it, and so on and so forth. Now, let's say if you want to focus on teaching your students how to acquire the information, how to analyze, and so on, you may want to take this family model. Yeah, and in why they call it family, why these 3 writers call it family, because in this every family model, they have many approaches and so on and so forth. So you might take this approach, inductive thinking model, concept attainment, and picture, word, and so on and so forth. These are all the approach under the information processing model. Now, remember, as I said just now, if you want to focus things on information, then you take this model. Then we look at the teaching, the right-hand side here. Is this a teacher-centered approach, or is this a student-centered? Is this passive? Is this active? Is this active? It depends on how you approach it. Now, if you want them to get the concept attainment, you are the one playing the role, 40 or 50%, that is your role. You control it, you are tell them what to learn and so on. And then in between, they have a little bit of discussion and so on. So this is more towards teacher-centered. Of course, active learning characteristics, active learning elements are there. But overall, it is more towards teacher-centered. Now, to really say that the approach is 100% teacher-centered or 100% teacher-centered, I think in this era is quite difficult, because most of the time it is interactive. Unless you go for TED Talk, it is 100. TED Talk is more than 90% is that person, the speaker-centered. Only after that they have a few, very few questions, or sometimes they don't have. Okay. So we go to the next one. The next theory is, Dr. Husna, the next slide, please. The next theory is social constructivism. Now, when you look at the name tells you that social is relationship. Now, this theory is constructed to take advantage of the relationship in the classroom. And we are hoping that by having this kind of relationship where students are interacting with each other, it can support the learning activities and their learning. You can see it, they work together, sharpen their cognition through the interaction. They work together as individuals and also as members of the team. So now, when you take this model, you take this theory and you take the model because you believe that they have to learn to work together, and this is what we talk. We are talking about the 21st century. Now, let's say you have students who do not cooperate, who don't know how to collaborate. They are always on their own. They want to be alone, or they think that I myself, one person, I can do it very well. Of course, you can do very well because you are good, but you have to remember that you live in a society. Eventually, you are going out. If you're undergraduate, if a postgraduate, you may not have a job now, but to improve yourself to be a person in the team. So if you believe in that, or you want to sharpen these skills, you want to encourage them for this kind of to have this kind of positive interrelationship, you take the approach here: partners in learning, cooperative group investigation, and so on. Then we look at this, the right-hand side. Is this type of approach you call it teacher-centered or student-centered? Now, it is more towards student-centered, but perhaps it is in between. It might not be 100%, it might be half-half. Okay, now, if it is 100%, then you go down to the inquiry part, the real student-centered learning, which is problem-based, project-based, and so on. that is truly a student-centered learning. The rest we are, I'll show you afterwards. We are moving along. So this is the theory that support this type of teaching approach or this type of teaching method. Now the next slide, please. The theory, the humanistic theory. Now this theory focuses on the learner. It is a learner-centric. It gives attention to the individual perspective. They believe in developing the individual so that they become they are independent. They can become increasingly they are increasingly self-aware, and they take responsibility to for their own destiny. They have to take charge of their own work. So we develop the person. It is a self-actualization thing. We have regards for this high self-esteem and so on and so forth. So the family model focusing on the individual perspective and encourage self-direction, independence, and so on. And the approach here is non-directive. The other one is enhancing. Now, we seldom use this in the graduate level because when they come here, we found that generally they are quite okay. Now, even if they are not, they suffer, the kind of, they suffer internally, you would know. Perhaps they have certain trauma and so on, but being adults or even the young adults, they don't tell us unless you get to know them, then you need to apply this. But this is rarely used. Counselor, they'll use this. Now, is this teacher-centered or student-centered? Now, the teacher reaches out to the student, empathize with the student, and the student will tell. So it is more towards the student. The student will slowly tell their part of the story, and then they will slowly, to discuss. And the student will have this awareness. The student will have the, aha, I know how to solve it. But before they know how to solve it, we have to draw it out from them, if they had the trauma and so on. So draw it out, and then you develop. Now before you can develop, you have to know the person. If the person is in trauma, the person has great difficulties, whatever issue, they cannot focus on study. Whatever approach you use has no use. You need to go to the centric method, and this is the personal family model. Next one, Dr. Husna, the next slide. Now, behaviorism, this is a very old theory, is so old. Now, behaviorism believes in, they believe that learning is a result of stimuli. And they believe that the behavior is formed, or the behavior is shaped and the behavior is also strengthened through drill and practice. So learning takes place because of the stimuli from outside. So it is environment that help them to learn. Now, what is the model? The model is called behavioral family model. It focuses on observable behavior. They believe in giving students sufficient amount of time. Now, they even say that it is not so much of attitude. It is more on the amount of time. A person might not be that intelligent, but you need to be beat, a little bit, step by step. Eventually, they are going to master it. And this is what we try to do for our postgrad students, especially supervision. But there are times that you find that, now this is another story we'll deal in other talks. In fact, sometimes it's quite difficult whether we can apply this for people who are doing PhD or even master student. There are some of them, they are just not cut for this, but they want to do, but they do not understand themselves. We need to apply the humanistic theory on them. Okay, now what are the teaching approaches and methods here this time? Yeah, because as I say just now, learning is a result of stimuli, is a result of the environment. Yeah. Okay, the next slide, please, Dr. Husna. So now, looking at these models, can you answer? What is your answer? So Dr. Husna, what is their answer? Okay, good. Social model, obviously, because we want them to be a member of the society, to be a responsible citizen. Okay, the next slide. So far, these are the questions. You people can answer very well. I think the other slides I'll go very fast. Now, Dr. Husna, how long do I have to complete my talk? What is the time given to me? I mean, how long is the time given to me?
I think until 3:30.
3:30. Okay, please remind me at 3:15 or 3:20. Okay, now the second part. The first part is method in relation to theories. The next one is methods in relation to effective instruction. Now let's look at the instruction here. You have in the middle is the student engagement. So here we have the students curious about learning, who invested their time, the effort, the money in learning. They want to make choice about what they want to learn, how they want to learn, and so on and so forth. So you have the student here. So, and the outer layers are those ecological layers in the ecosystem. The layers outside, yeah, all the layers outside are going to support the student who is curious, who want to learn. So we go to the layer outside, learning environment. The environment, perhaps, is the faculty, the school, the society, the culture, whatever. It's not the culture. The learning environment by the school, by the government, the policy, the faculty, and so on outside. So what is the role of this learning environment? It supports the students to take risks. It supports the students to ask questions. It supports students to make mistakes and to learn from the mistakes. And the environment should be a harmonious environment. Then we go to the next one, the shared outcome. Sorry, I'm still in that effective instruction. Another layer is the shared outcome. Sorry, because I said next one. The shared outcome, you can find that in our course information. So this learning outcome, now learning outcome should be shared between the teacher and the students. And both teachers and students, they should internalize this shared outcome, and they have to work together to achieve it. Yeah. And on the right hand side, this is the content and the materials and also the method. Now, the content, the students will explore this part here. The student will explore for information, for ideas, and so on. They will access, to all this information through various media, various points, and so on. So what teachers should do is to select the content, or help them to select the content, and trying to use all kinds of method to engage students, with all these materials, and trying to meet the unique needs of every student. We have here another one here on this layer. In this layer is a practice and feedback. Now, who is going to give feedback? Most of the time is a teacher, but their own peers can also give feedback. For example, they are doing problem-based learning, they are this peer review and so on, or they are what you call that, presenting the first draft of the problem-based learning, the friends who discuss and provide feedback. So this feedback is provided on the current performance so that they can improve whatever work that they are doing. Yeah. So I think here I forgot another one. Sorry, before here. Now, complex thinking and transfer. Now, we expect our students to develop this type of higher order thinking skills. So students are coached, they are taught to engage themselves in developing these higher order thinking skills. And what we can do is, as teachers, we provide the environment with the method. We give them the kind of instructional activities and practice tasks so that they can practice, their thinking and the transfer of knowledge. Again, this is 21st century learning. Okay, next slide. So we see now, before you go to the next slide, now method is very important here, because in every part there is a method. The student here, they are curious, or suddenly they become like, they are demotivated and so on. have done. The learning environment, you are going to provide a supportive learning environment. How? What kind of strategy that you use? Yeah, the strategy and the method again is related with the method. And of course, in the learning outcome, you have the methods there, method of a delivery and method of assessment. And the next one is the content here. Of course, the method, you can see method here, and the feedback. And of course, how to give feedback, whether it's a corrective feedback, a descriptive feedback, or the general and whatnot. Yeah. So method is very important, and it has direct relationship with all the components in this effective instruction. And I'll call that this is a macro curriculum, yeah, of learning. Now the next slide, Dr. Husna. Okay, we come to this approach, strategy, method, and technique. Now, it is really, really difficult to put a line between approach, strategy, method, and technique. It's really difficult. I look at now on my table, let me count how many books I refer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 books here, and some more in another location. Number of books that I refer, and the name is, I can name it here, teaching strategies, models of teaching, teaching skills, teaching strategies, teaching methods for teaching, and what else, learning theories, effective teaching methods, there are so, yeah, a lot. Now, I found that even from those days, and those lecturers who are teaching this subject, I know there are a few of you who are teaching this subject, I'm sure you agree with me, it's really, really difficult to draw a line. There isn't any books that really draw a line which is clear enough for us to see. So we have, there's a lot of overlapping and so on, but we are not going to be worried so much about this, because what is important is whatever method or approach that we use it effectively to help students to achieve their learning goal, to help them better, as you say just now, from unknown to known and so on and so forth, for them to explore the knowledge, to be a better person, improved, they have a better lives and so on, to be more knowledgeable, they have a cognition and so on. Now let's look at this. Let's say you are thinking you want to teach your students, then you are thinking about how to teach, whether I'm the one who is going to do a lot of talking like now, or I leave it to my students, or perhaps I begin first and then I leave it to them. So you are thinking about the approach, whether it is student-centered or teacher-centered, whether it is deductive, whether it is inductive, you are thinking about the approach. So that is based on your personal philosophy, based on the theory. You believe that, human beings, they don't have the mind, they cannot think, they think of behaviorism. Another one you think of, another theory is that people, they are born with this schema, they can accommodate, they can assimilate information, they can learn by themselves and so on. You're thinking of cognitivist theory. So this is approach. The next one is, you are coming here. Okay, now, I don't want to talk so much. I want them to be active. Then you think of the strategy. My students should, okay, sorry, I see the slide here. My should think and find out the answer. I don't want to find out for them. Okay, what should I do? My strategy is I'll ask questions. Because if I ask them to find out themselves, they'll be sleeping and so on. Ask questions, they have to answer my question. So my strategy is questioning. Then the next one. My strategy is questioning. Then I'll think of a venue for them to have among themselves Q&A, or sometimes Q&A between me and them. So what kind of venue that I want to give them? Perhaps I'm thinking of a discussion or forum, or maybe a debate. So here it is a method. There are steps. If I say discussion, what type of discussion? Every discussion, there are the procedure. You have the procedures, you have the steps there. So this is a method. Then I go to the technique. Now, even if discussion, what kind of discussion? Because I really want them to talk. Do they feel comfortable in a big group, or maybe I break them up to a team? So in this kind of scenario, when you look at this picture, the team pair share become a technique. But if you put it in another time, another scenario, the team pair share might become the method. Another time, your team pair share might become a strategy. So it depends on how you approach it to achieve your learning outcome. It is overlapping all the time. But I hope you can understand here roughly. Yeah? Dr. Husna, and any questions in the chat about this? This is just an introduction before we go to the conceptualization. As I say just now, there isn't any books, any literature, there isn't any paper. They give a very clear, what do you call that, very clear definition of this and that, you know. You may have one paper they give you, wow, this is very clear, very good. Then when I read another paper, it is something else. Yeah.
Okay, tak ada soalan Prof. Belum ada lagi.
Ada soalan ke?
Tak ada soalan.
Tak ada. So I go on. Okay, the next slide, Dr. Husna. Okay, now we go to the third part of my talk. Teaching and learning approach, strategy, method, and technique. Now we have to apply it effectively to enhance learning. Let's go to the first one. There's always this general kind of definition. When we talk about approach, it's close to our it is close to our personal philosophy. It is a set of principles. It is our beliefs. It is about the ideas on the nature of learning, which is translated into the classroom. You believe that learning should be something that the student themselves get it. Student themselves do it, the knowledge should come from them. You believe that because you believe that in the child-centered, they relate to the theories. So this is about the approach. Then we go to the strategy is a plan. It actually now, this term, they borrow in the teaching what they call the teaching methods. They actually borrowed this term from this the defense, the defense, the army. You know, they strategize how to attack people, when to attack, and so on. So strategy is a plan. You are going to start your business. Your strategy is okay. The rental is expensive. I want a location which I have many people, the 4 people. So you choose a place which is a good location. You say this is a strategic place. So strategy is actually a plan. And this strategy now, strategy, approach is called strategy, the strategy. And a lot of times you find that this tree, it is like terms, yeah. When Dr. Jamal said that day that when I said that, you know, both of us will argue, and he always laugh, you know, that I said that it should be theoretical based and so on. Yes, it is linked to the theory, but when it comes to whether this is a method or approach, it's quite loose. So now about strategy. When we talk about strategy in teaching, we are talking about instructional strategies. It is a planning part that we plan to achieve learning objective. It is a generalized plan for a lesson, which includes the structure, the desired learner behavior. So this is our plan. Our plan is our strategy. We plan how to achieve. You know, outside they say they plan how to increase the sales. So they have a strategy, the market strategy. So their strategy, whether they are going to be honest to the people or they are going to hide the truth, they have a strategy to get people. The next one is about method. Method is things which are systematic. They have a procedure. It is a systematic way of doing something. It implies an orderly, logical arrangement of steps. It is more procedural. When you're something which is, you can see the procedure, becomes a method. And you find that there are times approach becomes method. Strategy also become method. Now, the next one is a technique. Technique is a well-defined procedure used to accomplish a specific activity or task. Now, technique is actually a trick. Dalam bahasa Melayu, dia suatu tipu muslihat. Ada teknik. Example I give you, for example, let's say, I don't know this when I taught in the college, I remember. Now they said it was quite fun. When you are talking in front of the class and they make so much noise, you know, the kind of chaotic, you had to put up with it because sometimes discussion, the class become a little bit disordered. You had to accept because that is discussion. And suddenly maybe there's certain things you want. you can't longer than that. And you just tell them, look at this pen. Okay? Where a teacher standing in front say, look at this pen. What is that? They are looking at the pen. Look at me, please. I'm telling you something. I'm going to tell you something. So this is a technique. Yeah. In business, they use a technique to get people, to buy their goods and so on. So it is a skill that is quite difficult to learn. You get the skill. You know when to do it, when not to do it. You know when to see your lecturer to get something, you know when not. You know when to ask your boss, when not to ask your boss. It's a kind of skill, okay? Okay, the next one, Dr. Husna, the next slide. So roughly, to very simple brief conceptualization, approach is you treat something in a certain way. I treat it this way, teacher, centered, student, certain way. The strategy is some sort of planning. You probably use strategy when faced with a new situation. The strategy to win a game. I don't know what happened to all this. I'm trying to be smart to use this infographic, and this is what happened. Okay, now strategy. What happened? So you're using strategy. Using strategy to reach your goal. This one is the method. Now, the method is the way something is done. Perhaps, the routine, the procedural part. Technique is a skill to complete a task. Rafi, now I hope now you are with me about approach, strategy, method, and technique. Strategy is just a plan. Technique is a skill. Ya. Macam mana kita nak menipu orang dengan cara yang baik. Ya. To win people's heart is a technique. Okay, next one, Dr. Husna. So now I'll go one by one. Approach. Now, what is approach? What are the types of approach? You have so many types of approach. This is there's one here. I got it from another book. The name is called. There's another book. Where is the book? Now, yes, so many approaches. So I'm trying to combine and take just a few. And some journals say this, some journals say that. So I take those which can fit our practice. Number one is a teacher-centered approach. What happened? Why is that? Someone didn't. I want CTK. Okay, now the name of approaches. Now again, I have to tell that don't worry so much about this name as long as you know what it is and you are doing it. Now, teacher-centered approach is traditional in nature. If focused on the teacher as an instructor, it is usually referred as direct instruction. It is deductive because it starts with a generalization, the kind of formula from a teacher. The teacher tells what it is, or we also call it as expository teaching. So the name teacher-centered, deductive, expository, it all mean the same thing. And the teacher controls what is to be taught and how many students will be in and so on. Now, when you control something, it is easy. You control the time, you control the material, you control everything. So you can achieve. You can disseminate the knowledge usually for those facts. You want them to learn, and you want to learn something which is kind of a common understanding. You take teacher-centered. But even in the teacher-centered, halfway through it, you can have discussion. So the active learning elements come in. Yeah, you begin with teacher-centered, you explain. Then the next 10 minutes is discussion. So this is called the kind of interactive lecture, or perhaps you don't have. Yeah, now those days when I started as a lecturer in UTM, I remember, I'm sure you remember, I don't know whether Dr. Asha is with us here. Now, when I taught philosophy of education, remember we were in D N24 there, more than 100 students, and me and Tunku Sarah will be in front of Tuan Haji Hazil talking about philosophy of education, and 100 over students we can hardly allow people to ask questions. And even the people ask questions from behind, we can't hear. So it was very teacher-centered at that time. Then the opposite of it, at the opposite end, yeah, the student-centered approach referred as discovery learning. When you say student-centered, it's really student-centered. It comes from them, their ideas, their strategy, and then they are the one who analyze it, they synthesize it, they present it, then they improve on it, they share with the class, student-centered. Then another one, inductive or deductive. Whether I want to begin with giving examples, inductive, and slowly I guide them, still guide them, inductive, I guide them towards the conclusion. Now, deductive, I give them a formula, I give example, after that I give exercise. So, inductive, start with a lot of example. Dia macam pengenalan IC ya, inductive dengan contoh ya. Start with a lot of examples to find the conclusion. And this deductive, you give the formula. Yeah. Now, we will think of the example afterwards. Yeah. If any one of you want to share about this, just tell me. Okay, I better don't give. Now, this is by the name Habashan approach. It is under this approach, it treats students like a clean slate, don't know anything. Their mind is blank, and all the knowledge should be given from outside and is given from outside. So they focus very much on content presentation. It's very much close to the teacher-centered. This is even more, it is more teacher-controlled than this. Yeah? This might have the kind of interactive. This is really teacher-controlled. The other one is the evaluation approach. Now, you know about this Bloom's taxonomy. You have 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. By this, testing should be based on teaching. Testing should be based on teaching, and also we say that testing and teaching, both of these activities should be what you call that objective centered. Now you find that in fact, in our RCEM approach. So do the approach. That is the next one. Okay, these are the other approaches. There are so many approaches from all the books, subject matter centered. It is about the subject. Subject gains supremacy over that of the learner. Teacher dominate. Teacher's voice is heard. They have all these different names. Interactive classroom. More students talk, less teachers talk. Students are given opportunity to interact. Just because they interact, you call it interactive approach. Just name it, I think this is a problem with researchers. Just like our students, when they research, they coin a term. They coin a term, and there are many people that quote their paper, then it becomes, people accept it, then you have another term. Constructivist approach to construct knowledge. They take the meaning out of what they are taught and so on and so forth. They connect them to their prior experiences and so on. They are actually, constructing their own knowledge. That this is a banking approach, deposits. Why you call it banking approach? They deposits knowledge into the empty minds. It is like the one just now, the Bashan approach. The teacher is the one who gives all the Not just like you put the money in the bank, then they call you a term. They integrated the penggabung jalinan one, intradisciplinary. Then you have I see the thing here. I'm trying to read the slide. Now, the other one, the disciplinary approach is limits the teacher to discussing his lesson with the boundary of his subject. So it is based on the discipline. You don't talk anything else. You focus on the discipline. The other one is collaborative. You collaborate. You collaborate with your team. You have the partners and so on. The next one, individualistic. This is independent. The direct teaching, the teacher is the one directly tells the student, you do it to find out, I tell you first. Yeah. The indirect guided, the teacher will guide the students to discover, guide the students, to discover what they are supposed to learn. So the students are engaged in the learning process under the teacher's guidance. Research-based teaching and learning, their research findings, then you go on with teaching and learning. Perhaps you just take the research findings and you discuss, what they are going to learn. The whole child method, they take into account not only the academic needs of learners, but also the emotional and so on and so forth. Metacognitive, you bring the learner to the process of thinking about thinking. So they are always, into their deep thinking. Problem-based, you give them a case, a problem, and that they analyze the case, they analyze the problem. The problem is actually a question. In a long question, we say that it is a case. So they see what they have to learn. And then they find the issues, they form their own hypotheses, they write down the objective, they think of the strategies, they find the information, they come back to the group, they discuss, and then they improve again, and then they share with the class, and they talk about how they're going to apply outside, because the problem is about the real life, the real life context. So these are the names of approaches. Now, next slide. You have the direct and indirect approach here, okay? So I have roughly what you call that described just now and discussed and explained. Next slide, Dr. Husna. Now, the more is teacher-centered and student-centered. Passive. Teacher's role is active. The student-centered is inductive. You give examples, you don't give the answer. Yeah, and a lot of student-centered learning here, and a lot of active learning elements here. Now, this is not to say that you don't have active learning characteristics here. You still have in a didactic. As I said just now, that in between your discussion, you might have debates and so on. So you still have the deductive, you still have the active elements inside. Why it is called deductive, why it is called teacher-centered, why it is called lecture method? Because you begin with the generalization. The moment you begin with generalization, you are the one who control the time, control what type of activities. It is lecture method, it is teacher-centered, it is deductive. Because the formula, the generalization comes from you. But here, the students are the one, you guide them to get the conclusion, even though you are going to help them to edit, to improve the conclusion, but still it comes from them. You are only helping them as a guide by the side. So you have the direct instruction coming from you, indirect. Indirectly, they learn, indirectly. They don't know that they're learning by doing experiment. Actually, they are learning. Next slide. So this is the indirect instructional sequence. I got it from a book on teaching method. You start a review, you present the content, you give the feedback, then they practice some more. You come here. This one to the second circle. If you need, you go back again. So it is present the content. They understand, they practice it. You give them feedback. That's all. So it starts from you. So if first round they still can't get it, you go give them some more. You review the content article. Then you give them some more until they grasp it. Yeah. And for students who are quite weak, you normally use this mastery learning, because they need a lot of teaching from you. I think even the postgrad students, they need this, you need to present and then you discuss with them. Now, in fact, I have read at least 2 articles that talk about andragogy, adult learners to be learners, a lot of time, they are the concrete learners. They example, for them to learn. And from my experience, it is true that, they are not that interested in many a times. They do not want to go through the kind of tedious circles of problem-based learning and so on. I have one student, quite a smart student, who actually asked me, why should you ask us to do this problem-based learning? Is that easier? Just give your note to us. I can learn, I can understand. You see, this is what we talk about adult learners. And this is what Prof. Haria said that day is easier to do for undergrads. Because postgrad, they come here with a kind of, they are determined, they know what they want. I just want to do this, I get a master degree, this and that. And they are not so interested into the deep learning. And this is where the problem comes when we come to the supervision. It's really difficult. You ask them to do something, they come back still with the same problem. They don't have the deep learning, and it's quite difficult to make them understand that in their level, when they come to the postgrad, it's a thinking. Everything about postgrad is a thinking part. Okay, next one. Yang itu cerita, ya. Now, is there any best approach? There isn't any best approach. There isn't any best method. As long as you help students to improve themselves, you help students to gain the knowledge, and whatever they learn is in relation to the demands outside the job market, that is a good approach. You cannot give them something they learn the fact they are good, first class, and so on and so forth. But the job market demands something more than the first class. They want to see people who good team player. So that is important. You don't it's not just a kind of what do you call that, the degree itself. I know of one example, a multinational company. The interviewer is close to me. Very close to me. Now, the interviewer interviewed the undergraduates. So he got the undergraduates from a few universities. They have this career fair, whatever. And this interviewer is a crazy person. He pays special attention to the candidates who come for interview, those people who are football players, who play games. So those are the people who got his attention. And he took those people, and he took most of them from UTM. He told me that they were not the first class honors, but then he believed that this type of people, they can work in team, they can learn. And true enough, with his guidance and so on, and he told me that they were good workers. There you see. So now this guy, the interview, he has a strategy. He has a strategy to get the people who are team players. He look at what kind of sports, what kind of game that they play. So, those people who play like just, single badminton, play and so on, is not in his list. The ping pong, whatever, he doesn't look at it. And he himself is interested in football. Okay, that's a cerita, kisah benar. Okay, next one. Now about the strategy. I have two definitions by Anderson and here by Lawton. Teaching strategy, the bottom here, generalized plan for lesson, includes the structure and so on. And Lawton says that... Okay.
But just reminding you.
Something wrong, is it? Is there anything wrong? Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So now strategy by Anderson. Student outcomes may heavily depend on the teacher's instructional planning, the teaching method selection, and the activities. So you can see here, strategy encompasses everything. It is an effective teaching strategy helps students to achieve their goals and success in life. Now, this comes from a paper, a good journal paper. Yeah. And then we look at strategy. Using Blackboard is a strategy to provide visual structure. I want to show them, I use PowerPoint or I use Blackboard. It's a strategy. I don't want to show the picture, I use Blackboard. Questioning is a strategy. to check for student understanding, to see the effectiveness of the lesson, to increase higher level thinking, and I ask a convergent or divergent question. It is a strategy to get the answer. It is a strategy to make them understand. It's a strategy to see whether my lesson is effective. Q&A. Debate is a strategy. A strategy to know who is a better candidate to be the president of America. Let's debate. Debate to find out the truth. So it is a strategy. I want to find out the truth. The person won't tell me. Let's debate. Then from the debate, okay, the next one is the use of digital technology. Is another use of digital technology is also a strategy that cannot be avoided in these modern days, because we are using laptop and gadgets to enhance students' learning and also to help us in our teaching. So that goes to approach and strategy. The next one will be on method. Dr. Husnan, the next slide, please. Now, as I said just now, the term used in approach is again used in method. It is overlapping. The teaching method. Now, what is teaching method? A systematic procedure. It's a systematic plan. It's a way, a technique or process of doing something, a body of skills and technique. Okay, the next slide. So direct method. This is the one used in the approach, but in quite at least 2 books that I refer to, the name is about teaching strategies and method, and say this as method. Direct method. So direct method is like just now the direct instruction, teacher directed, step by step. The moment you're step by step, you can produce the steps, you can call it method. Okay, the next one. Deductive method is teacher dominated. It begins with the abstract rule, generalization, a wide scope of subject matter. Of course, the learning is passive because teacher dominates it. A lot of drill and exercises. Okay, the next one. Inductive method, it begins with examples. And students are more engaged in it. They are more interested when they're trying to find out the answer, something that they don't know, until they can develop, until they can come up with their own conclusion. It demands a lot of higher thinking or the skills. It requires more time because they want to find out. And the teacher serves as a guide. Now, you can give, what inductive and deductive. Say, for example, you want to teach, I give you a very simple example for the kids of the primary school. You want to teach them primary colors. What are the primary colors? The traffic light colors, is it? Okay. You tell them the colors and you show them all the colors. They can name the colors. And after that, you tell your students, okay, let's discover. We want to, today is a discovery lesson. I want you just mix the colors as you like. Then they ask you what color to mix. I say, I don't know. I'm just telling you to mix. You mix as you like, as long as you don't dirty the floor. So they just mix the colors and you tell them. Then they'll come to you. They say, oh, I mix this and then I get another color. Wow. Then someone else from the other corner shout, I get another color. Then you tell them, okay, just write down. So they write it down. Then after that, they claim at the place. Then we ask them. So, what have you discovered, or what did you discover? Then they say that, I have this color, and I get this color. Another one say, I mix the 3 colors, something which is interesting, very close to the trees outside. So, then they come to the generalization, hukum telah ditulis. This is inductive. Let them play around, let them explore, and they get the conclusion. Okay? But if you take the deductive is very easy. You just tell them, we have 3 primary colors, 1, 2, 3, that's it. And then you ask them, okay, I want you to think of your environment. Where can you see these 3 primary colors? And then they think of examples. That is pretty easy, because you give the formula. So they understand very fast. But it is not interesting, it is boring. And they may not really remember because they did not do it. When they do it, they remember. As what, the other day, the speakers, Dr. Jamal, show that the cone by Dale, the learning cone, how many % they remember after 2 weeks and so on. Okay, the next slide. Okay, technique. Technique is applied in implementation of approach, strategy, and methods. It comes together. It is a particular trick. You know, it must be consistent with the method. Now, I give you one example of technique. Say, now you are asking question to the students. Okay, you want to call in your mind. You want to call someone sitting in front, the front row, which is near to you. So where should you stand? Are you going to stand near that person or far? I believe you're going to answer me. You're going to stand quite far from the student, right? This is your technique. Why? Because if you stand near, you are going to ask a question quite soft. Other students may not hear, and other students may not pay attention. So you purposely stand far. So everybody get the attention. And when you stand somewhere else, the student there may think that, oh, teacher going to call me, but actually you are going to call the students sitting in the front row. This is your technique. Now the next one, still questioning your technique. After you ask a question in the front row, right hand side, the next question, your technique, you may go to the other end, diagonally the other end, behind. This is your technique to get the class to pay attention. Then the next one, another side. So this is technique. You know, how people, you know, the marketing people, you know, the sales, how are they going to get the customers to come back? Perhaps, you know, even though it is fixed price, but then if the person has bought the thing, let's say, RM50, 30 sen, apa-apalah 30 sen. This is your technique to win people's heart. Yeah. And the football, you have the technique. You know, your approach is to cover the field. Then you have your techniques. You dribble or kicking the ball or passing, how to pass. So I get this from internet because I don't know. Dr. Sharon, Dr. Hafiz will know. Okay, next slide. So we are done with approach, strategy, method, and technique. So this is the last two, the fourth part, the final part, the spectrum. Whether it is teacher-centered or student-centered. The teacher-centered, you can see here, the lecture. Work examples. Flip classroom. Why? Because you already, you know, you have control. You know, you see this, you see that. Discussion can be in the middle. Now, the really student-centered is down here. Because they are the ones who draw their learning objective. They are the one who find out the issues. So this is a part they really learn. Yeah. The next slide. Also the spectrum here. Lecture demonstration. Now, in fact, if you do them, it is very teacher-centered because you only use that program. We have to follow you. We have to follow your steps. You control the program. You control everything. It is very teacher-centered. But in between, you may have discussion, the Q&A. So the active learning elements is there. The questioning, you are the one coming from you, questioning. So this is as long as you have a big amount of a teacher's role, then it is a teacher-centered. Then you come down here, role play. You don't know how they are going to play their role. They have their own, you know, their kind of drama skills and so on, simulation, reflective inquiry, thinking about, I have to do something about this slide. So problem-based learning, they do it themselves. Now, if you want to talk about you want to see how they approach a question, how they analyze it. I can really see the you know, the kind of cognitive level among my students. There's something which is surprising. I can see a correlation between the way they approach, the way they come out with, you know, they get the issues, they come out with the hypothesis and so on, and how they answer their exam question. I can see a link there. Yeah, tapi malas tak tulis paper lagi. Okay, this is a spectrum. We are encouraged to move down towards a student-centered. And for every part, you have active learning element inside. But to say that whether it's teacher-centered or student-centered depends on your role, how many percent. and whether you are the one who start off by giving the generalization. If the thing, the conclusion, the hypothesis come from you is here, but it comes from them is student-centered. Okay, Dr. Husnia, any questions?
Okay, let me check.
Okay, let me see.
Other question.
I just continue.
Okay, Prof, just remember it's 3:46. Maybe Prof nak ni lah before 4.
Yeah. 1.5. So I'm going to end soon. In fact, it's towards the end already. So now, but today I'm just giving the fundamentals of teaching methods, the conceptualization into one by one. It will take a very long time, but roughly I hope you can see the link between theories, models, teaching approach, methods, and strategy. I hope you have roughly an idea about what is approach, pendekatan, and then what is what do you call that? What is a method is. We are coming to the end. Is the last slide already, right? This is already the last slide, isn't it? Finish already, right? Okay, the next one is this. Okay, now I would like someone to, some volunteer. Let's say by using approach, strategy, method, and technique. Let's say you are thinking of your dinner. So whether you want to eat outside, you want to get from outside or home cooked food. So this is your approach. No, I want to order, or you say that I want to cook. So this is your approach, home cooked food. So what, or you might want to order. So I leave it to you. Someone can come up with answer. You think of you makan luar, you want to eat outside or here, at home. You eat outside, you want to order. At home, you know, you want to cook and how you want to cook. Can someone give examples, analogy that, you know, you want to link approach, strategy, method, and technique? Anyone would like to try? Dr. Husna, can you show the one with those stars that I showed? Okay, never mind. You can do it. If anyone who wants to try, you can show it. You can tap here. Okay, we go to the one overlapping part. Okay, now this is anyway. What we have to remember is that approach is an idea. It is close to personal philosophy. It is close to our own belief. Maybe there are examples of teacher-centered, student-centered in close to an idea. You can see the link. Next one is strategy. When you talk about the strategy, maybe it is a little bit of method-based. Method-based, and you know, you want to do it cooperatively, want to roll or collaborative, lebih kerjasama. Cooperative is very clear, the country, and so on. Independent work, strategy. Or the next one we talk about strategy is something else. We use blackboard, you know, or you use a kind of some skills inside and technique inside. Strategy. Method is a procedural thing. So this is roughly, at least it gives us some ideas, strategy, and method. Technique is fine. Technique is just you know, your kind of trick that you play. Okay, next one. Just a quote about this cone of learning. When you do it, you can remember better. And in the 21st century, this is what we expect. Next slide. Quotes for educators for us. Number one, good teaching is 1/4 preparation and 3/4 theater. So what does it mean? You might be a first-class degree holder, but can you deliver? You have to remember that we tell our students, you know, well, you prepare, but can you deliver that well? You have to know that teaching is three-quarter theatre. Theatre is acting on the spot. Can you deliver? You have people, first class degree holder, but they can't teach well. The third class person, deliver. How well you can deliver. It's not so much about how well versed you are about learning theories, how well versed you are about definition of approach. You can define definition, you can define approach, you can define method, you can define very well. But what for? Student don't need that. As teacher, you need it. What student need is, come on, teach me. How do you deliver? First one. The second one of the beauties of teaching is that there's no limit to one's growth as a teacher. We always explore as much as one expects students to explore. And remember, the way we teach is the way that we want students to learn. If you teach in a passive way, but actually, you actually want your students to learn the passive way. Yeah. So just as there is no knowing beforehand how much your students can learn. So it is vast. You don't know where is the beginning, where is the end, but you know that it's forever developing. Next one, any genuine teaching will result, if successful, in knowing how to bring about the condition of things that exist here than what existed earlier. So a good, effective teaching, if it is successful, it will produce a good result. And the next one, slide. So you read yourself. We need to shift the focus of learning from simply teaching students to have the right answer to teaching them the processes by which educated people pursue right answers. Okay? Especially for the postgrad, this is very important when they're writing team. Grad, please help them, because when they go out for interview, they have to answer. They have to answer smartly. It is not about the result. People are not really looking at the result, even though the technical knowledge is still important. But they want to see how you solve the problem. Yeah, I think that's all right, Husna? Yeah, that's all. So, any questions? I hope I have managed to deliver something that can help you to understand conceptualization about learning approach and so on. This is a fundamental part, and as I say just now, this talk is not aimed to go into the details of every method. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Husna, that's all.
Okey, kita buka kepada soalan.
Jika ada soalan daripada sesiapa, you can write in the chat or just unmute your microphone and ask the question. Tak ada? Okay. Nampaknya tak ada soalan, Prof. So,
dia ada maksud tau. Tak ada soalan ialah orang tak suka. Orang faham atau tak faham. Dia
saya rasa orang faham.
Okay.
Okay. So, tak ada ya soalan. So, thank you very much, Prof, for sharing this session today. Banyak dah Prof share pelbagai topik, but today was very insightful tentang teaching theories dan sebagainya. Saya rasa sepatutnya lebih banyak lagi pengkongsian daripada Prof ni, tapi masa tidak mengizinkan. Okay, so thank you so much. Ada kata-kata terakhir daripada Prof sebelum kita end the meeting?
What I want to tell you all is that don't bother so much about the name, whether this is approach, this is method. It is not that important, not that important unless you're writing a paper or you are doing some research and so on. Just make sure that whatever approach or method that you use it correctly. That's all. If you are doing something which is problem-based, please know that this is problem-based and not project-based. And if you're doing something which is actually something that you do, the method is called demonstration. You have to know that it is called demonstration. There are the steps. Follow the steps, knowing the name and follow the steps. That's all. So why is it important to follow the step? Because we are going to help them, to achieve the learning outcome. You are going to help them to grasp the knowledge. You are going to help them to acquire the knowledge, to use the knowledge. And you help them to be educated, educated in the sense of knowledge, information, and skill. So, berkesan. Nama tu kena dikaitkan dengan kaedah. Kena faham step, apply the step. Itu sahaja.
Okey, terima kasih Prof. Nasihat yang sangat baik kepada generasi yang baru nak mengajar. Okay, before you leave the meeting room, this virtual meeting room, I've copied a link for the evaluation of the course. So, bolehlah isi bagaimana Prof punya sesi hari ini. So, it's in the chat. So, please isi.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Husna, and all of you for making, you finally make it for this session, even though I know that you are very busy with all the examination marking and so on. Thank you very much, all of you.
Okay, terima kasih. Ham will end the meeting. Okay.